The morning light drifted softly across the quiet neighborhood, painting the gardens in a warm golden glow. Birds fluttered along the fences, dew clung to each leaf, and the world looked as gentle as a whispered promise. At the edge of a small cottage garden stood a wooden gate, simple, worn, and touched by time. And beside it, like clockwork, sat Milo, the family's gentle golden retriever. Every dawn, without fail, he would walk to that same spot and sit perfectly still. Not distressed. Not excited. Just present, calm, steady, and focused. His ears would perk softly at distant sounds, his tail resting quietly on the ground, and his eyes fixed on the path beyond the gate as though waiting for something only he understood. Inside the cottage, Emma, his owner, watched from the kitchen window while pouring her morning tea. She had always assumed Milo just enjoyed the sunrise. But lately, she sensed something deeper. Something intentional. His posture wasn't casual, it was purposeful, almost tender. As if he was guarding a memory. Or waiting for a feeling. One morning, Emma stepped outside, wrapping her sweater around her. "Milo, what is it you're looking for?" she whispered. The dog didn't turn. Didn't move. He simply breathed in the cool dawn air, eyes warm, as if sensing something far beyond the horizon. There was no fear in him. No urgency. Only quiet devotion. Emma knelt beside him, touched by a sudden swell of emotion she couldn't explain. It felt as if Milo's heart was gently reaching for something, or someone. And as another dawn unfolded, she realized his behavior wasn't a habit. It was a message. His behavior had a meaning no one expected. The first light of morning always came softly over the quiet neighborhood. Not rushing in. Not demanding attention. Just easing its way across rooftops and treetops like a gentle breath. Inside the small cottage, the world was still. Only a faint hum of the refrigerator. A low creak of settling wood. And the slow, steady breathing of Milo, the golden retriever sleeping at the foot of Emma's bed. But as the sky shifted from deep blue to the first warm hint of rose, Milo lifted his head. He didn't rush. He didn't stretch with dramatic excitement. He simply opened his eyes. Waited a moment. And then quietly stood up. Emma felt the movement before she fully woke. Her hand reached toward the warm spot he'd just left. "Milo," she whispered, eyes still closed. No response, only the soft thud of paws moving across the wooden floor. This happened every morning. Quiet. Predictable. Almost ritualistic. Emma sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes as the early light brushed against the curtains. She pulled her sweater from the chair, slipping it over her shoulders as she followed Milo's path. Through the hallway. Past the kitchen. Toward the back door that opened into the garden. When she unlocked it, the morning air slipped inside, cool, fresh, and carrying the smell of damp earth. Milo stepped out first. Not eagerly. Not distracted. But with that same calm purpose she'd noticed so many times. He walked across the stone path and stopped beside the old wooden garden gate. Just as he did every dawn. Emma leaned against the door frame, watching him. He sat. He didn't look back. He didn't wander. He didn't bark or whine. He simply sat, upright, focused, peaceful. The golden light touched his fur, turning it warm and soft like brushed wheat. His ears tilted forward just a little, catching distant morning sounds, the soft chirp of birds, the roll of a far-off car, the whisper of a breeze through the hedges. But his eyes stayed fixed on the same quiet direction beyond the gate. Emma sighed gently. She'd seen dogs wait before, some waited for food, some waited for walks, some waited for attention. But this was different. This was devotion without urgency. Purpose without tension. Stillness with meaning. She walked slowly toward him, the grass cool under her feet. "Milo," she said softly. Her voice broke the quiet like a small ripple in a calm lake. He didn't turn. He didn't flinch. But his tail moved just an inch, one gentle wag acknowledging her presence without taking him away from his focus. Emma knelt beside him. "You're out here every morning," she whispered. Every single dawn. What's so special about this spot? Milo breathed slowly, the air filling his chest before drifting out again in a calm, steady rhythm. The garden gate stood in front of them, weathered, simple, with tiny paint chips from years of sun and rain. It hadn't been opened often these past months. Not since. Emma's thoughts slowed. She placed a hand on Milo's back. His fur felt warm despite the morning breeze. Comforting. Familiar. Are you waiting for something, or someone? She murmured. Milo's head tilted slightly, a soft, thoughtful movement. Not confused. Not alert. Just quietly aware. The moment held them both, Emma in her gentle wonder, Milo in his quiet purpose. A bird landed on the fence nearby, chirping its bright morning song. The sun climbed a little higher. Shadows shifted on the ground. Emma exhaled, feeling a tiny ache she didn't fully understand. Milo had always been a loving dog, loyal, intuitive, deeply connected to her and her late husband. But this morning routine, this quiet presence beside the gate, felt like more than habit. It felt like memory. She stood up slowly. Well, I'll make some tea, she said with a small smile. Come inside when you're ready. But Milo didn't move. Not even a glance back. As she walked toward the house, she turned once more to look at him. A single beam of sunlight passed through the leaves above, landing gently across his face. His eyes glowed with warmth, calm, steady, holding something she couldn't name. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't longing. It was something softer, deeper, like affection reaching through time. Emma paused at the door. What are you thinking, boy? She whispered. Milo remained still, watching the quiet path beyond the gate, as if waiting for a moment only his heart remembered. And for the first time, Emma felt it clearly. His behavior wasn't random. It wasn't routine. It meant something. Something she wasn't ready to understand yet. But she would. Soon. Very soon. She took one last look at him before stepping inside. And Milo stayed exactly where he was, bathed in golden dawn light, quiet, gentle, devoted. Waiting for a truth Emma hadn't uncovered yet. The next morning came the same way the lasted, soft light, slow shadows, a quiet breeze slipping through the curtains. But this time, Emma was awake before Milo. She sat on the edge of the bed, watching him. His chest rose and fell in a peaceful rhythm, his paws tucked under him, his tail curled close like a warm blanket. When the first hint of dawn brushed across the room, Milo stirred. Just as gentle. Just as calm. Just as certain. He stood, stretched lightly, and walked toward the door, not looking at Emma, not seeking permission, only following the same quiet pull that guided him every morning. Emma slipped into her sweater. All right, she whispered to herself, I'm watching today, really watching. She followed him down the hall. No sound except the soft padding of paws against wood. The house felt like it was holding its breath. When she opened the back door, the cool morning air greeted them again, fresh, earthy, familiar. Milo stepped outside. Emma stood just inside the doorway, almost hidden by the frame, observing every small movement. He didn't rush. He didn't even pause. He walked with that same gentle certainty straight to the garden gate. And sat. Emma watched the way his ears shifted, not in alarm, but in subtle recognition of distant sounds. A quiet truck on the main road. A jogger's faint footstep around the corner. A mailbox door closing 3 houses down. Milo took it all in like someone listening to a familiar song. Then Emma noticed something new. Every now and then, his tail would move. Just one small wag. Then stillness again. As if responding to something only he could feel. She stepped closer, careful not to break the moment. Milo, she said softly, what's happening in that head of yours? He didn't turn, but one ear shifted back in acknowledgement. Not distraction, connection. Emma took a slow breath. Something warm filled her chest. Not worry, not confusion, just a soft emotional pull. She whispered, are you remembering someone? Milo exhaled, long and gentle. His eyes were fixed on the same quiet direction beyond the gate, not searching, but watching with a tenderness she hadn't recognized before. After a few minutes, Emma walked around him, positioning herself at an angle where she could see his face clearly. His expression wasn't sad. It wasn't hopeful either. It was peaceful. Deeply peaceful. Like someone sitting at a place that mattered. Emma kneeled beside him again. He gave her a soft glance this time, just a moment of eye contact, warm and steady, as if saying, "I'm okay. I know what I'm doing." She touched his shoulder lightly. Milo leaned into her hand. Just a little. Just enough. The breeze passed through the garden again, brushing the rosemary bushes and carrying the faint smell of wet soil. Emma noticed the smallest detail every time the wind moved through the garden. Milo's eyes softened. Like the scent reminded him of something, someone, a memory living quietly in the morning air. She stayed with him longer this time. Not talking. Not questioning. Just grounding herself in the quiet with him. Minutes passed. Maybe more than she realized. When the sun started rising higher, she spoke softly. "You can come inside now, boy." But Milo stayed. He wasn't ignoring her. He wasn't being stubborn. He was finishing something. A moment. A memory. A ritual only he understood. Finally, after another long breath, he stood up. He didn't rush to her. He didn't shake off the morning. He simply walked to her side, brushing lightly against her leg with the calmest trust. Emma's voice softened even more. "You're telling me something. I just don't know what yet." Milo looked up at her, eyes warm, gentle, steady. If dogs could speak, those eyes would have said, "I'll show you. Just stay with me." Emma smiled despite the ache blooming quietly in her chest. This wasn't just a habit he'd picked up. This was emotional. Intentional. Full of a love she could feel even if she didn't fully understand it yet. She walked back toward the house. Milo followed, slow, calm, unhurried. Like he had completed his morning purpose. Inside the kitchen, she poured tea while Milo lay near the door, resting his head on his paws. He wasn't tired. He wasn't out of energy. He was content. As if the ritual outside completed something inside him. Emma sat across from him, holding her warm cup. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "I'm sitting out there with you. From the very beginning." Milo's tail thumped once against the floor, soft, gentle, grateful. As though he'd been waiting for her to say that. And Emma felt it again. That quiet pull in her heart. A soft intuition. A memory waiting to be uncovered. She looked at the garden through the window. Something was there. Not in the flowers. Not in the gate. But in the space between yesterday and today. Something Milo remembered with love. She didn't know the truth yet. But the mystery was getting warmer, closer, gentler, and far more beautiful than she expected. The morning came again, soft, pale, and gentle. A quiet breath over the garden. Another day beginning the same way, and yet somehow different. Because this time, Emma didn't wait until Milo walked away. She rose before the light fully touched the walls. Wrapped herself in her warmest sweater. And followed Milo the moment he headed for the garden. He didn't look back to see if she was coming. He didn't need to. His paws knew the path. His heart knew the place. Emma stepped outside with him, and the familiar cool air brushed across her cheeks, fresh, clean, carrying the scent of wet earth. The sky was just beginning to brighten when Milo reached the gate. He sat. Calm. Present. Focused. Emma lowered herself onto the small wooden bench a few feet away. It creaked softly beneath her, a sound she hadn't heard in months. From here, she could see almost everything: Milo's posture, his breathing, the gentle swaying of the garden around them, and the quiet path beyond the wooden gate. She watched him with full attention. "What do you see out there?" she whispered. Milo didn't turn. But something in his stillness answered her. Emma pulled her sweater tighter around her. It felt strange, like she was stepping into a moment that didn't fully belong to her, at least not yet. Her eyes drifted across the flowers bordering the fence, the marigolds, the roses, the scattered herbs her husband had planted. She hadn't tended them much since he passed. Yet somehow, they still grew. Not perfect. Not neatly groomed. But alive. Just like this morning ritual, something kept it going. Emma took a slow breath. She remembered waking up years ago to see her husband outside at dawn. Kneeling near the roses. Touching the soil with the soft tenderness of someone caring for something he loved. She could almost hear him saying, "The morning is when everything listens." Back then, Milo was still young. He followed him everywhere, through the rows of flowers, across the stone walkway, right up to this exact gate. Emma's chest tightened gently. Had Milo been doing this for longer than she realized? The memory unfolded slowly, her husband opening the garden gate every dawn, stepping outside to check the soil near the fence, sometimes pausing, just to breathe the morning air. And Milo would sit beside him. Always beside him. Emma blinked. The soft ache inside her deepened. Was this why Milo waited here? Was he remembering? She leaned forward slightly, studying Milo's face. His gaze didn't move, but his expression softened, a quiet, peaceful glow in his eyes. Emma whispered, "You loved those mornings with him, didn't you?" A small breath escaped Milo. A gentle sound. Not a whine, more like an exhale of recognition. Emma looked down at her hands. Since losing her husband, mornings had felt heavier, emptier, quiet in a way that pressed against her chest. But Milo, he hadn't stopped. He carried something forward. A memory. A moment. A ritual built from love. She looked again at the roses swaying in the faint breeze. They were planted by her husband's hands. Tended with care. Loved into existence. Emma felt a warmth spreading through her chest, soft, familiar, bittersweet. Maybe Milo came here because he remembered those mornings. The scent of the roses. The sound of footsteps on the path. The gentle touch of sunlight as it rose behind the fence. Maybe this gate wasn't just a gate. Maybe it was a doorway to a memory he refused to let fade. Emma wiped a tear quickly before it fell. She didn't want to disturb the moment. Didn't want Milo to feel her sadness. This wasn't about pain. Not for him. This was love. A quiet, loyal kind of love. She looked back toward the house, imagining her husband walking through the garden. His soft laugh. The way Milo would nuzzle his hand. The way he'd say, "Good boy." Another beautiful morning. Emma remembered hearing that phrase so many times. And suddenly, she realized she hadn't said it in months. She whispered now, "It really is a beautiful morning, isn't it, Milo?" Milo's tail moved once. Just once. A warm, silent yes. Emma stayed there with him until the sunlight spread fully across the yard. She didn't speak again. Didn't want to break whatever sacred thread connected Milo to this place. When the moment naturally passed, Milo stood on his own, calm, slow, with a quiet sense of completion. He walked back toward the house, giving Emma a soft look as he passed. Not asking for anything. Not needing reassurance. Just sharing the moment with her. Emma rose from the bench. For the first time, she didn't feel like an observer. She felt like part of the memory. Part of the morning. Part of the ritual. There was something here, something beautiful and quiet and full of love. She wasn't sure of all the answers yet. But she wasn't afraid of the mystery. She was ready to follow it. To understand it. To feel it. And tomorrow, she knew she would be right here beside him again. Their quiet mornings were only just beginning. The next dawn rose with a softer glow, a pale peach color spreading slowly across the sky. Emma woke before her alarm again, as if her body now understood the quiet rhythm Milo had followed all along. Milo lifted his head the moment she sat up. Not surprised. Not startled. Just gently aware. as though he sensed she was joining him again. Emma smiled. "Come on, boy, let's go together." He walked beside her this time. Not ahead. Not behind. Right next to her, a small but meaningful change. When the back door opened, the cool air wrapped around them. Milo moved to his place at the gate, settling into the familiar stillness. Emma sat on the bench nearby, wrapping her arms around her sweater. But today, something was different. She wasn't alone in the garden. Voices drifted lightly over the hedges, two neighbors walking along the sidewalk beyond the fence. Emma glanced up. Mrs. Turner, her elderly neighbor from a few houses down, stood near the side fence, adjusting her shawl around her shoulders. She looked like she'd been out for her usual dawn walk. She lifted a hand. "Morning, dear." Emma smiled softly. "Morning." Mrs. Turner's eyes drifted toward Milo. "Oh, he's out early again," she said with a warm chuckle. "Again?" Emma repeated gently. "You've seen him before?" Mrs. Turner leaned on the fence, her expression gentle and filled with the quiet knowledge older neighbors often carry. "Oh my goodness, yes," she said. "That sweetheart sits there every morning. Rain or shine. Even when you were visiting your sister in the city a few months back, he still came out right at dawn." Emma blinked. Her fingers froze around the bench edge. "He came out even when I wasn't home?" "Well, of course he did," Mrs. Turner said. "As if he was waiting for someone. Always with that calm, patient look. Breaks my heart in the sweetest way." Emma's chest tightened with a soft, warm ache. "Milo, waiting for someone." She turned toward him. His posture remained steady, eyes focused on that same quiet path beyond the gate. Mrs. Turner went on, unaware of the emotional shift she had stirred. "I remember seeing him years ago, back when your husband was alive. They were always out there together. Such a beautiful sight, those two greeting the morning." Emma swallowed. The memory had been hers alone until now, but hearing it spoken by someone else brought it into sharper focus. "Did you notice this routine even after?" Emma hesitated. "After he passed?" Mrs. Turner nodded softly. "Oh yes." Milo didn't stop. He kept coming. Every morning. Emma felt her breath catch, not painfully, but deeply. Something inside her shifted. A small piece of understanding clicking quietly into place. Mrs. Turner pulled her shawl tighter. "You know, dear, some dogs don't forget routines tied to love. It stays with them. Like a soft echo." A soft echo. Emma let the words settle in her heart. Mrs. Turner offered a warm smile. "Well, I'll let you two enjoy your morning. Have a lovely day, dear." "You too," Emma whispered. The neighbor walked away, her footsteps fading along the sidewalk. Emma looked back at Milo. He hadn't moved. Not an inch. His eyes stayed fixed on the path, but there was no sadness in them. Only quiet devotion. Emma stepped closer. She knelt beside him again, speaking softly. "Milo, you were waiting even when I wasn't here?" His ear shifted in acknowledgement. "You remembered him, didn't you? And you kept coming here, because this is where you shared mornings together." Milo didn't break his gaze from the gate, but his breathing deepened, slow and steady. Emma felt another piece of the puzzle fall into place. Her husband's laughter. His early morning footsteps. The sound of the gate latch opening. The way the sun would hit the roses just as he stepped outside. Milo had been here for all of it. And then for the emptiness that came after. But he never stopped coming. Not once. Emma sat down next to him on the grass. The cool dew touched her palms. She didn't mind. "Milo," she whispered, "I think you're holding onto something beautiful." The wind stirred again, gentle, warm, brushing through Milo's fur and lifting a strand of Emma's hair. And for a moment, she felt it too. A presence. A memory. Not haunting, just softly lingering. The morning held something sacred, not because of loss, but because of love that refused to disappear. Emma placed a hand on Milo's back. "I'm here now," she said quietly. "You don't have to remember alone." Milo's tail thumped once, slow, warm, grateful. The sun continued climbing, bathing the garden in golden light. Emma and Milo remained there, side by side, sharing a moment that had once belonged to two others, but now belonged peacefully to them. A clue had been given. A memory had opened. The truth was getting closer. Warmer. Deeper. And the garden seemed to breathe with them, carrying the scent of roses, the sound of morning birds, and the quiet echo of love that never left. The following morning felt different even before Emma opened her eyes. There was a tenderness in the air, a warmth woven into the dawn light, like something was quietly waiting to be understood. For the first time in months, Emma didn't feel the weight of the morning. She felt invited. Milo stood by the bedroom door, waiting for her, not urging her, not pulling at her, just standing there with gentle certainty. Emma slipped into her sweater and whispered, "Let's go together again, boy." This time, Milo didn't walk ahead. He paused beside her at each step, as if making sure she was ready for what the morning held. They stepped outside. The dawn air felt softer today. Warmer. Almost familiar. Emma inhaled deeply. The sky was painted in shades of pastel orange, settling gently over the garden. The roses near the fence swayed with the early breeze, quiet, patient, timeless. Milo went to the gate. But instead of sitting immediately, he looked back at Emma. A small, meaningful look. Like he wanted her right beside him this time. Emma walked over and sat on the ground, letting the cool dew soak through her pajama pants, letting the world be as quiet as Milo needed it to be. He settled next to her. Not in front of her. Not by the bench. Right next to her. Close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body against her arm. Emma whispered, almost to herself, "Okay. I'm here. Show me what you feel." The garden responded first, a light breeze drifting through the rosemary, carrying its earthy scent. The soft rustling of leaves. A sparrow hopping along the fence. Milo's breathing matched the rhythm of the morning. Slow. Quiet. Intentional. Emma watched the way his eyes focused on the space beyond the gate. Not searching. Not anticipating. Just remembering. She followed his gaze. A dirt path leading between two hedges. A quiet street beyond that. Nothing remarkable. But Milo looked at it with a tenderness Emma couldn't ignore. "Milo," she murmured, "what do you see that I don't?" Her voice didn't startle him. He leaned forward just slightly, a subtle movement, almost like he was leaning into a memory. Emma felt her throat tighten. The last time she saw her husband alive, he had walked through the gate at dawn. Coffee in hand. Shoes barely laced. Smiling as he stepped into the new day. And Milo had been right there beside him. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, letting the picture form, the way he used to touch the roses, the way he would scratch Milo behind the ears, the way he stopped at the gate to breathe before starting his morning. When she opened her eyes again, Milo was staring up at her. Not confused. Not concerned. But as if checking whether she felt it too. Emma whispered, "You're remembering him, aren't you?" Milo let out the faintest exhale, not a sigh, not a whine, but a soft release of breath that sounded almost like agreement. Emma felt her eyes soften with tears that didn't fall. Not sadness. Not grief. Just a warm ache that finally made sense. She rested her hand lightly on Milo's chest. "You waited here with him every dawn," she said. "Didn't you?" Milo leaned into her touch. Gently. Warmly. Reassuringly. The breeze shifted again, passing through the roses, their scent rising in a familiar wave. Emma felt something stir inside her. A memory she didn't expect. Her husband's voice. Not loud. Not clear. Just an echo. "Morning is when everything listens." She hadn't thought about that line in ages. But here, in this quiet dawn, with Milo beside her, It felt like the past wasn't behind her. It was right here. Sitting in the silence. Resting in the air. Living in the ritual this dog refused to give up. Emma placed her hand flat against the grass. She could almost feel her husband kneeling there, checking the soil, humming quietly, brushing away fallen petals. Milo shifted closer, resting his head on her knee. Emma's breath caught softly. This moment, this exact spot, was where they all used to stand together. Husband. Wife. Dog. Mourning. Now two remained. But Milo carried the third in his heart. Emma whispered, voice trembling. "Thank you, Milo, for remembering when I couldn't." His tail brushed the grass, a slow, gentle wag. Not joy. Not playfulness. A shared feeling. Like he was saying, "You weren't alone. I kept him here." The light warmed, spreading across them. Emma wiped her eyes, but the smile that formed was pure and steady. For the first time since her husband's passing, she didn't feel grief pressing inward. She felt love reaching outward. Milo lifted his head again and looked toward the gate, soft, calm, as though the memory had returned to its quiet resting place. Emma exhaled slowly. The soft revelation had begun. She wasn't imagining his ritual. She wasn't projecting emotion. Milo carried a memory. A routine. A piece of love that didn't fade just because the person was gone. And by sitting beside him, Emma had stepped into that memory too. Tomorrow, she knew they wouldn't just be remembering. They would be healing. Together. Emma didn't sleep much that night, not out of worry, not out of sadness, but because her mind kept circling back to one truth. Milo remembered what she had tried so hard to bury. She lay awake thinking about old mornings, her husband stepping outside with a quiet smile, Milo at his heel, the sun rising behind the garden gate like a soft promise. For months after he passed, those memories were too sharp. Too heavy. Too bright. Emma pushed them away. But Milo, he held onto them gently, like a warm thread stretched between yesterday and today. When dawn arrived, she was already dressed, waiting for Milo to stir. He did it slowly, like always. Lifting his head before the world fully brightened. Emma whispered, "I'm ready." Milo walked beside her again, closer than before. Close enough that their steps matched, close enough that she felt they were walking toward the same truth now. The morning air greeted them with a cool whisper. The roses glowed softly in the dim light, their petals still touched with dew. The garden felt different, not emptier, but fuller, as though the past had quietly stepped forward. Milo took his place at the gate. Emma settled beside him on the grass. This time she came prepared. In her hands was a small, worn photo album, one she hadn't opened since the funeral. She rested it in her lap. "Milo," she said softly, "I think it's time we look at this together." He leaned his side against her leg, grounding her with his warmth. Emma opened the album. The first page held a photograph from years ago. Her husband kneeling by the roses, soil on his hands, smiling at the camera. And right beside him a younger Milo, tail halfway wagging, eyes soft with admiration. Emma exhaled. She turned another page, more photos of the two of them in the garden. Dawn light behind them. Roses. The gate. Again and again. Milo looked at the pictures. Not with confusion. Not with excitement. But with a stillness that made Emma's breath catch. "You remember," she whispered. His ear lifted slightly, a small, warm acknowledgement. Emma flipped to another page. A photo of her husband standing at the garden gate, holding it open with one hand. Milo sitting right where he sat now. Same posture. Same focus. Same calm devotion. Emma touched the edge of the photo with her fingertips. Her voice came out soft. "This is why you come here, isn't it?" Milo lowered his head and nudged her hand gently. A soft, emotional pause filled the garden. Emma's eyes shimmered, but this time the tears didn't feel heavy. They felt freeing. "I didn't realize," she said. "I didn't understand what this place meant." Milo sat taller, not in alertness, but in quiet pride. Emma turned a few more pages. A photo captured her husband in his old morning sweater, leaning down to scratch Milo behind the ears. The sun catching the side of his face. The roses behind them. The gate slightly open. Emma felt a warm ache inside her chest. A rediscovery. A gentle remembering. She whispered, "This was your time with him, wasn't it? Your favorite time." Milo's tail brushed the grass, one slow wag. Emma placed the album beside her and looked at the gate. It seemed to breathe with them, like it carried all the morning rituals of the past and held them gently in place. She reached out and touched the wooden surface. It was rough beneath her fingers, warm from the rising sun. A memory pulled forward. Her husband's voice, soft, steady, loving. "Morning is for beginnings." Emma closed her eyes. She felt Milo lean against her again. The connection became clear. This wasn't just ritual. Not just habit. Not loneliness. It was loyalty. Milo wasn't waiting for her husband to return. He was honoring him. Emma opened her eyes with a calm clarity. "Milo," she whispered, "you weren't holding on to the past. You were keeping it alive for me." He looked up at her, eyes warm, steady, filled with that gentle intelligence only dogs possess. Emma smiled through the emotional warmth filling her chest. "I'm here now," she said. "And I remember too." The breeze moved through the garden again, brushing the roses, lifting the edges of the photo album pages. It felt like a quiet agreement, the morning itself acknowledging her understanding. Emma rested her hand on Milo's head. "I think," she said softly, "we should make a new morning together." Milo closed his eyes in a slow blink, peaceful, trusting, content. The truth had connected itself. The mystery wasn't heavy. It wasn't painful. It was beautiful. A thread of pure love stretching through time, held gently in the heart of a golden retriever who never forgot the man who once shared the dawn with him. And now, it was Emma's turn to share it too. The next morning rose quietly, a pale gold glow stretching gently across the garden, touching the roses, softening the shadows, warming the wooden gate Milo always watched. Emma no longer felt hesitant or unsure. She walked outside with purpose, not rushed, not forced, but with a calm steady breath, like her heart was finally stepping into a place it had been avoiding for too long. Milo reached the gate first. He sat with that same quiet dignity, that same peaceful presence he always carried. But this time, Emma sat even closer. Close enough that their shoulders touched. Close enough to feel the warmth of his fur merging with the warmth rising from the earth. The garden felt sacred this morning. As though the truth, quiet and patient, had settled into the air between them. Emma placed her hand gently on Milo's back. "You've been trying to tell me something for a long time, haven't you?" Milo didn't turn. His breath was slow, calm. But the slight lift of his ears told her he heard. He understood. She looked past the gate, into the soft morning light. Nothing dramatic was out there. No figure approaching. No sound of footsteps. Just the path her husband once walked every dawn, every morning, without fail. And suddenly, the truth settled in Emma's heart with clarity. Milo wasn't waiting for someone to return. He was honoring someone who never left his memory. Emma's breath hitched softly. She spoke in a quiet voice, the kind meant for moments that deserve gentleness. "You weren't waiting. You were remembering." Milo lowered his head, just slightly, a soft, respectful bow toward the gate. It looked almost like a greeting. Or a tribute. Emma let the silence hold them for a moment. Not heavy. Not painful. Just tender. She remembered the photo album from yesterday. The way Milo sat beside her husband in nearly every picture near this exact gate. How he looked at him with unwavering devotion. She remembered the morning she used to watch through the kitchen window, her husband opening the gate, patting the wooden frame, then crouching down to whisper to Milo. "Come on, boy. The day's waking up." Emma's eyes softened. She whispered the words now, softly, for Milo, and for the memory that lived in the air. The day's waking up. Milo's tail brushed the ground, a slow, gentle wag. He leaned into her side, pressing his weight against her in a way that felt grounding, almost comforting. As if he was saying, "You remember too now. We're together." Emma ran her fingers through his fur. "Milo. I didn't know you held on to this. I didn't know you kept this ritual going." Milo exhaled a deep, calm breath. A release. A soft answer. Emma felt warmth rise behind her eyes. Not from grief, but from gratitude. "You stayed connected to him," she whispered. "Even when I couldn't." A breeze swept through the garden, then it's soft, warm, carrying the scent of roses her husband once tended with gentle care. Emma lifted her face toward the wind. It felt like a blessing. A reminder. A quiet echo of the man who loved this space. Her voice trembled slightly as she said, "You weren't waiting for him to come back. You were carrying him forward." Milo closed his eyes at a slow blink, peaceful, content, steady. Emma reached out and touched the gate. For the first time since her husband's passing, she didn't feel the gate as a boundary. She felt it as a memory. A threshold. A tender mark of the love that shaped their mornings. "I see it now," she whispered. Milo looked up at her, eyes soft, filled with that deep, soulful understanding only dogs can hold. Emma rested her forehead gently against his. "You kept this tradition alive, because it meant something to you." A single tear slipped down her cheek, quiet and warm. Milo nudged her hand with his nose. Then leaned fully against her leg, as if anchoring her to this moment. It wasn't sadness. It was connection. A truth revealed not to hurt her, but to heal her. Emma let her fingers brush the gate once more. "Thank you," she whispered. "For remembering him. For remembering us. For keeping this morning safe." The sun climbed higher, casting golden light across Milo's fur, turning him into a warm, glowing presence. Emma breathed in slowly. "I think he'd be proud of you," she said softly. Milo's tail moved again, just once, slow and meaningful. Like a heart answering a heart. And in that moment, Emma realized something even deeper. This ritual wasn't just Milo's memory. It was his gift. A way of keeping love alive. A way of bringing her back to a place she was afraid to revisit. A way of saying, "We can heal here. Together." The truth was no longer a mystery. It was a quiet, beautiful bond woven through mornings, through memories, through the heart of a dog who never stopped loving. The next dawn felt like the gentlest one yet. Emma woke before Milo, not from worry, not from routine, but from a quiet feeling inside her chest, a feeling she hadn't known in a long time. Peace. A soft, steady kind of peace. She slipped out of bed and noticed Milo still sleeping at the foot, his breath slow and deep, his body relaxed, his paws twitching lightly as if he dreamed of running through sunlight. For a moment, Emma simply watched him. "How much love can one dog hold?" she whispered to herself. As if hearing her heart more than her voice, Milo opened his eyes gently, no rush, no startle, just the calm awareness he always carried. Emma smiled. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's go meet the morning together." He rose slowly and walked with her, shoulder to knee, step for step. Not guiding her. Not following her. Walking with her. Side by side. When they stepped outside, a wash of golden light greeted them, warmer than the past mornings, more alive, as if the world itself knew something had changed. Emma felt the air fill her lungs in a way that didn't ache anymore. Milo took his place at the gate, but this time he didn't settle immediately. He waited for her. Emma came to sit beside him, right on the grass, letting the dew touch her palms, letting the sunrise soak into her skin. She placed a gentle hand on his back. "We're here," she whispered. "Together." For a moment, neither of them moved. The world was quiet, the kind of quiet that holds meaning, not emptiness. The roses swayed with the soft morning breeze. A sparrow landed lightly on the fence. The familiar scent of soil and flowers rose into the air. And somewhere in that stillness, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Connection. Not memory. Not grief. Not longing. Connection. Like her husband wasn't gone at all. Like he lived in the morning light, in the scent of the roses, in the soft rhythm of Milo's breathing beside her. Emma closed her eyes. "I think he'd like this," she murmured. Milo leaned gently against her, not pushing, not nudging, just resting with her. Emma's voice softened into the space between them. "You kept the mornings alive for us. You kept his love alive." Milo let out a warm breath, a soft release, a sound that felt like understanding. Emma turned slightly so she could see his face. "You're not waiting anymore, are you?" He looked at her with eyes full of something deep, not sadness, not longing, but acceptance. He wasn't waiting. He was honoring. He was remembering. He was loving. And now, he wasn't doing it alone. Emma's hand moved slowly to cup his face. "I'm here now," she said. "I remember too. And I'm ready to start again." Milo's tail brushed the grass, a gentle, steady movement. The sun climbed higher, bathing them both in warm gold. Emma felt her grief lift, not disappear, but settle into a softer place inside her heart. A place that didn't hurt. A place that felt safe. She breathed in the morning light, letting it fill the spaces where sadness used to live. And then, in a voice almost as soft as the dawn itself, she said, "We'll make our own ritual now. Every dawn. You and me." Milo shifted closer, his fur warming her arm, his presence grounding her in a way nothing else could. She rested her head lightly against his. For a long moment, they simply existed, two hearts sharing one quiet morning, held together by the love of someone who once stood at this gate. Emma lifted her face toward the rising sun. "I thought grief meant letting go," she whispered. "But maybe it also means holding on to what matters." The breeze moved through the roses, gentle, warm, and familiar. Almost like a response. Emma smiled through the softness in her eyes. "This gate, these mornings, they're ours now." Milo stood up then, stretching slowly, turning to Emma with a look that felt like a new beginning. He wasn't waiting anymore. He was present. Here. Now. With her. Emma rose beside him, brushing the dew from her clothes. The day felt open, full of gentle possibility. She reached down and scratched behind his ears. "Ready to go inside, boy?" Milo wagged his tail, warm and certain. But before they turned back toward the house, Emma gave the gate one last touch, a soft gesture, not of mourning, but of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she and Milo walked back toward the cottage, together, side by side, carrying the dawn with them. Their mornings would never be lonely again. Healing had begun. Love had continued. And every new day would rise with the same message Milo had been trying to share all along. Some loves don't fade. They simply change shape, and wait to be found again.